Out of all the Resident Evil games that I have played, Resident Evil 7 was the most different experience. From the first-person perspective, to the featuring of psychopathic mass killers that felt like human beings rather than brainless bioweapons, this game created its own identity within the franchise and was arguably the game that saved it from an eternal downfall. In this video, we're going to be looking back at this game 5 years after its release and breaking down important elements that contributed to its success. One of the most prominent elements in this game that made it what it is its story. It starts very simple with limited characters, but grows more and more complex as you go through the Baker house, reading notes and making new discoveries, ultimately unfolding at the end, allowing you the satisfaction of connecting all the dots to each other. The DLCs carry a great amount of information that helps you get rid of loose ends causing confusion. The story gives each character their own mysteries that drive you through the game trying to solve them. This makes for a constant desire to proceed through the horror, consuming every piece of information that might give you access to the truth. The Baker family is the main horror source in the game. They are presented as merciless killers that enjoy your torture, with clear inability to control their behaviors. Their sole purpose is to catch you and make you a part of their disturbed family, which is an urge planted into their minds by Evie, as its creators gave her the attributes of a real child that wants to be within a family. They are completely invulnerable to gunfire and can never be killed when stalking you through the house. Knowing that your only chance to avoid danger is to escape and having to play with a character that runs as slow as he walks, the anxiety when the Bakers are following you is extremely intense. Yes, it's a relatively bad feeling when you're playing, but it makes up for a great relief when you make a successful escape. It also indicates how strong the game is, having the ability to cause such impacts on the player. Lucas doesn't chase you, but is the one that displays the most happiness when you're suffering, even when not under the control of the virus. Zoe is the sole member of the family that slips the grasp of Evie, and manages to stay in her natural mind state. She helps you out throughout the game by making regular phone calls, giving you instructions on the next step. The atmosphere in this game feeds the constant horror, and promotes the feeling of desperation. Everything the player is exposed to is covered by a greenish filter that throws every single object within your vision under the label of horror. Nothing inside the game encourages happiness or relief. It feels like you're in a never-ending cycle of horror that repeats itself and doesn't allow you out of it. Alongside this, there are always sounds and creepy music triggered during your gameplay that keep you under tension even if you're in a relatively safe spot with no enemies around, forcing you not to lose focus a single second. This feeling is so intense that you experience a general relief after beating the final boss and assuring your safety when a rescue team and a chopper dedicated to take you home are seen around you. Every single choice you make within your inventory crafting and every single bullet you decide to let out of your gun barrel has consequences. The limitation of resources in this game is extremely strict, as ammo is rare and enemies take many bullets to die. I personally found the intense feeling of insecurity that haunts you and worrying about ammo shortage an obstacle preventing me to enjoy the game, as it always kept me thinking instead of enjoying fights, which I know is something a lot of people might think differently about. I simply like to have resources enough for me to mess up reasonable amounts of times and still be able to eliminate all present enemies even on hardest difficulties, meaning that I'm never obliged to avoid enemies because I think that should be an optional skill to obtain when you're trying to optimize your gameplay to fit certain challenges like speedrunning. Resident Evil 7 was the first game in its franchise to experience with the first-person perspective. Along with the advantages it brought, it caused a great change in gameplay compared to over-the-shoulder perspective titles that preceded it. Now, whenever you're attacked by an enemy, instead of seeing your player going through the motion, half of your vision is blocked as the enemy feels like he's attacking the screen. I know this contributes to horror and a feeling of anxiety that's needed in games of this genre, but it's still something that I had to get used to. Also, running hardly feels different from walking in this game, much like running in a dream, and I hate it. I know that I'm going against elements that shape the essence of horror games, but it's just too much. They could have given Ethan proper running speed, but still allowed the game to maintain its horror features. Maybe even make enemy characters run faster, and broaden the halls of the Baker House and other playable locations to match Ethan's increased speed if necessary. When playing or watching any form of horror material, sound shapes half of the experience. Well, the voice acting in Resident Evil 7 makes sure that part is taken care of. Every single voice actor in this game shows great skill in each line and carries vivid emotional expression on each word. The impeccable voice acting in this game is one of the major reasons Jack following you through the house gives intense anxiety. He keeps you on your toes by constantly playing with your mind with seemingly playful but serious threats. Also, it makes the cutscenes much more immersive and leads dialogues to have strong impacts. It delivers each statement in a way that fits it and gives each character a distinctive personality that connects well with the rest of the story and adds value to it. Resident Evil games might shift towards different directions in certain aspects, but they all fall under the same overall story. Every game is linked to the other. Resident Evil 7 maintains this feature, but still feels like it has its own story. It feels like a reboot, but still connects to the rest of the franchise properly. Using a new set of characters, never introduced before, the game starts in a whole other direction, but gradually unfolds its secrets, making its way towards the regular Resident Evil lore. It feels different at first because no sign of regular Resident Evil is displayed. Even the characters feel like mere human killers as they interact with each other and Ethan with intelligible words that sometimes hold emotional charges. Additionally, the first-person perspective rebrands the game in a new look that might shift your attention from its roots. It gives everything an alternative feeling and makes a great change in the way the game is played. Also, the main bioweapon in this game has a radically different behavior that might have helped the story shift from regular Resident Evil. Evie's ability to control the minds of those she comes in contact with allowed the introduction of all her victims, who all functioned as primary characters in the story, with an active link between all of them, which helped keep everything within the confines of that game. This made it able to function independently from the rest of the franchise, but still keep a fundamental link to it. One of my favorite things about Resident Evil games is the extra content that you unlock after beating the game in set conditions. It always keeps you coming back to the game, always grinding, driven by the desire to acquire every single unlockable. It's a very satisfying addition that drastically increases replayability and sprinkles the game with a positive sense of competitiveness. It's also worthy to mention that the DLCs in this game carry almost half of the story. They will correct all the confusions you have about the characters and showcase their backgrounds and what they used to be, and for the case of Jack and Lucas, how they finally die. Okay, so this is the end of the video, guys. I just want to say that, it was all my experience, and some of you might disagree, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, the video seems to be extremely short. I didn't expect it to be this short. I wrote a big ass script, but somehow when I read it, it was pretty short. So yeah, this is the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on the next time.